It is our second favorite movie we've reviewed with a character named Trinity.
That was good. That was very good.
There we go. We got
about that.
You guys got to think about it. Just
Yeah.
wait for Funky Films 3. That's when we're gonna have all Matrix Resurrections.
Oh, that'll be
Entire board.
interesting.
All right.
That's where Funky Films 3 is where I switch things up and I lead for the entire time and blow a huge lead.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, King.
Declan's just
Spoiler alert.
excited
Sorry,
to win
guys. Oh shit.
one. Hey, you know what? We're all excited to talk about Lincoln whenever we get around to it, right?
Oh yeah.
All
It's
right.
my favorite
Speaking of Lincoln, segue. Nothing to do with Lincoln. We're talking about Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, the new Sterling K. Brown movie. Regina Hall co-stars. I think she's actually first billed, so my apologies for not listing her first. Regina, we love you. Great job with the film. Thanks for watching, by the way. I don't know how you found us, but so yeah, this film pretty interesting, mockumentary style for a lot of it. What you guys think?
My main problem with the film.
It's just
What? Wait, I had to- wait,
If you've been tracking our episodes, I'm like almost 90% sure that is one of the first times that Declan has interjected to voice his opinion first. Especially in a negative way.
Wow.
You know, my main problem with the film.
Yeah.
This is the worst thing I've ever seen.
No. That was
but
Hawkeye
seriously,
episode 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
Seriously?
exception is Hawkeye, but that doesn't count.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
throw it over to the group's resident Catholic to get us started on the movie about Christ.
All right, we'll
That's good.
All right, Ben, all off to you. Wait, oh, you said resident Catholic? Oh, okay, all right.
We'll do a great
Sorry.
So I was gonna say, my main problem with the film is that I saw the film The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and so I kind of felt like throughout this film that like I had seen this story all before, and it just, unfortunately for me, it just didn't have anything to really stand out. Like, it's not bad. It's like well acted, obviously, with, you know, Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall, you know, that's, you know, they do a great job. But just there's like nothing about this film for me, like, stands out from like any other film about televangelist who is corrupt and eventually has a downfall. Like it just felt too similar to so many other films.
And you've
Like,
seen all of them, right?
yeah, I've seen all of them, every single one of them. No, it's like it just I don't know. I mean, but part of it was I just didn't like. I think maybe I didn't click with the humor. Like there was at no point where I laughed at the movie. Like I never felt like there were any like jokes in the movie. And that's fine. But I also didn't find the story compelling enough where like it's like, oh, like I can connect to the story. Like there's just, unfortunately, it just felt like too many other like televangelists movies, you know. I don't know.
So I agree with you like 100%, Declan, actually, which is nice. That for those of you that don't know, which is everybody watching this, that isn't the four of us on this video right now, we did a poll right before this to figure out who to give a hard time.
These three
it was voted unanimously, George.
I abstained.
George did not abstain. He voted for himself, which is a conversation we did have at another time. But
results,
George, I'm speaking right now.
Yeah.
Come on now. I'd like to deliver my point. No, anyways, you know, I actually agree with Declan. But I also am gonna push back because I think that it was actually a really interesting representation of televangelists that thinking of the Joel Austins and the sort of mega church vibes that you get from uh the Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown. I think it's actually a really accurate portrayal of what that lifestyle is like, right? Like, I mean, obvious well, not obviously, but I am not someone that subscribes to a mega church or even necessarily their religious beliefs, and that's okay, but I do think that it was a really interesting representation of like how absurd that it can be, right? Like there's all these jokes that go on the internet of making fun of televangelists and mega churches of being these big and gaudy faux representations of what Christianity is supposed to be. And that's exactly what we got, right? Like this was a mockumentary, but also in the style of Borat. Like it was kind of a really interesting mishmash of the two. And sure, I didn't laugh out loud at most of the jokes that came through on the screen and the script, but I still thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny representation of what like a lot of people's perceptions of this kind of Christianity are like. I'm thinking specifically of one scene at the very beginning of the movie where Sterling K. Brown steps on a piece of gum and starts cursing up a storm and then says, hey, can we cut that? Can we cut that out? Like, let's just keep going. Let's keep going. And I mean, I thought that was brilliant, right? Like that was just amazing.
Well, then we get the callback moment later in the film when Regina Hall's character, Trinity, steps on the gum.
Yep.
And we sort of see how, this is how, everybody in charge of a mega church would react.
You know what I think?
It's clearly the same across the board.
Yeah.
The issue kind of is for me, I think, like, I felt like like Pastor Childs and his wife don't seem like parodies of, like, they don't seem like any exaggerations on televangelists. They kind of seem like televangelists. Now that's both a critique on the lifestyle that many televangelist preachers live, but also a bit of a critique of the film, in my opinion.
I think if I may quickly hop in here, you're correct in that they're not a parody. They are a satire. And I think there's a difference between the two terms that is minute in many cases, but also very clear here, that they are providing a commentary. There is some sort of pointed discussion to be had about the role of megachurches in our society. And that's one of the things I wanted to get into tonight.
I'm going to push back on that.
Blatant making fun of. And that's not what this film tries to do.
I'm going to push back on that, in this certain circumstance, specifically evangelists for profit, they're not a satire because those are the real people. Like, I'm going to, in this case, very much agree with Declan. I have seen this movie before. I have seen all the plot points before. Not to say they have done it badly, but it is a very tired, and I don't think they do some things uniquely. Like I get the mockumentary aspect to it, but all the plot points were covered in about I can't remember how many minutes, but there's a Genesis song called Jesus, He Knows Me. And it's pretty much everything that happens in this film, other than it's more of a televangelist versus a megachurch, but same idea. Preaching for a profit. I don't really practice what I preach, but I preach it because it makes me money. It's all about having mistresses, having the man I met last night. I mean, there's lots of great lyrics in that song. I think my favorite is, you don't even need to leave your couch. Just get on your knees and start paying. Sorry. You don't even need to leave your house. Sorry. Just get on your
That's
teams.
not
That
what I was
doesn't
questioning.
change. That doesn't change things, Ben.
Yeah.
I think that's yeah. Like, but I think yes, like I haven't heard that song before, but I appreciate you
Good one.
sharing it because again, I feel like it perfectly encapsulates how
I feel like this is a craze that really, like, not to say that it doesn't exist now, but it was in its heyday in the 80s.
yes,
It feels a bit late because there are so many people who have done this film before.
exactly.
Even though religion is, for profit. And not to say that it's done badly. I just found it hard to engage with the film
Mhm.
because I sort of got what they were getting at. Like, I wasn't surprised by anything, and I didn't actually laugh too much just because I believe that these are the people who they actually are, not a satire.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do believe that is the actual case. Like, there is an exaggeration here, but
No.
evangelism for profit, and even like some people will say the big church, the Vatican, and all their money. But religion is not something my grandfather was a big fan of. I am Jewish, though I am not a big practicing Jew. Maybe also that had something to do with me not being into the whole mega church thing.
See, Ben's not a
yeah,
practicing Jew
no, I'm
because he
just-
perfected it.
I got what they were getting at the whole time, and so I was kind of bored.
Mhm.
This is me coming from my 1 year of Hebrew school.
I think what I think in some way I feel like the film, for me at least, feels like a lost opportunity because I feel like it could have either been, again, to me, I know some people found it funny, like not just people here, I'm talking about people in general. Some people found it funny. For me, I never really found it funny. So it could have either been like a really funny film, like could have used its mockumentary style to like tell really funny jokes. I think mockumentaries, when done well, can be some of the funniest movies of all time.
Yeah.
Or it could have been a unique spin on the televangelist story. I mean, the fact that it's about
I will
a
say,
black televangelist, that's at least something, I don't know.
piggybacking on that, I think one of the problems that I had most is, aside from it being very like a common territory for me, I
Mhm.
found it really hard to connect with the characters. Regina Hall's character I could connect a little bit with.
Mhm.
But even then, I
Are you
found their
also the first lady of a mega church?
Ben has that vibe, I will say.
Yes, exactly. I know what she's going through. But I guess it was hard to connect with them. I mean, I know they're parodies, but even like, Nigel from This Is Spinal Tap. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a guitarist, but like, I get it, It's like I'm sort of rooting for him, even though he's an idiot. Whereas these guys, I'm not rooting for either of them. And like, I know that's not the point, but I don't want to see any more of them in a lot of ways.
The film
Also-
tries to get you to root for them. They introduced
Yeah.
the rivalry with the other mega church.
Mhm.
The Sumpters, yeah.
Second film in a row that we've done with Nicole Bahari.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Weird enough that she was in this film and Breaking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
just thought that was a fun, unexpected thing to discover about this
A
film.
lot less
Yeah.
flexible.
They
You
try
know-
to get us to root for the
They
child.
do, but I don't think it works.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta say, like to go on that, they're trying to get us to root for it, but they make the decision, and I would say this is a bad decision, to not have any actual stakes in the sense of we are clearly shown that the Childs are still living in a mansion.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not
That's
like
the first thing I was thinking of.
and it's not like there's any sense of like, oh no, we're running out of money or like so something like that. Like there's no, they seem to be trying to restart the church again for the sake of it, kind of. And so if they fail, nothing. There's no.
It gives more for their ego.
Yes,
than anything else.
exactly. And I mean, maybe that's the point, but to me, I felt like it just made the story feel.
I agree with
substantial.
you in that, like, it is very hard to see the hardship. I get that, like, oh no, I have to pay out all this money, but like they're living in large houses, they've got piles of, fancy cars, they
Mhm.
have tons of stuff.
Mhm.
Don't forget the
So,
giant
yes.
closet.
Yeah, a giant closet full of tons of stuff. Like,
Multiple Pradas.
it's very clear that he has a lot of money. And I think the other issue, aside from there being no stakes, like financially, I have no idea what to make of the like sexual misconduct stuff that is throughout the film, which is like, it's sort of alluded to, but I don't know how to view it. Like, if this guy really paid for people and abused them, like, I don't want to root for him,
Yeah.
Well, one of the great scenes in the film is when it's probably alluded to the most in the gym.
Yeah.
Just speaking technically, the gym scene is done in one shot. It's
Mhm.
one take over like 4 or 5 minutes.
Also,
you're right.
that scene
It's
made me feel
technically-
uncomfortable and probably made me not want to root for either of these people, like, even more. So,
Just if you guys didn't know, I go to film school.
mhm,
What?
yeah.
Whenever something like that scene, or I always think of the second act of the Always Sunny episode, Charlie Work, or even a film like 1917 or Birdman, where you get these, drags of single take directors, cinematographers, and actors all doing their thing. It's just so almost mesmerizing to watch once you pick up on it. And with Birdman in 1917, you're aware of it going in.
Mhm.
But as you're watching this movie, and it goes between styles, you've got the widescreen aspect ratio when they're not in the mockumentary, and then it's full screen 16:9 when you're watching the actual filming of the mockumentary, which I thought was a really subtle way of showing what was going to be in their story and what wasn't, what they wanted and what they didn't want to tell. But then when you get to a moment where the editing style and the visual style is so different and so far away from what we've had over the first half hour of the film, 40 minutes of the film, it really struck me as, all right, maybe there's not a lot for me to grab onto narrative wise or character wise, because you guys are right, not easy to root for these guys. And the story, I mean, I was raised in a pretty non-religious household. I mean, I celebrate the holidays, half Jewish, half, I think my dad was raised Lutheran or something. But I celebrate Christmas, I celebrate Hanukkah, I celebrate Thanksgiving. I mean,
This is not to say, just to be clear, this movie is making fun of specifically like mega churches, not necessarily
Yeah.
all the churches.
So
Yeah.
I can't really connect with the narrative of, oh, this is a mega church pastor and a mega church first lady who have been involved in a scandal and now they're trying to rebuild their audience. There's nothing that I can grab onto there. And character-wise, you're right that these characters have been done before. But I gotta have something that I can take away from the film, and something so incredibly well done technically. Like, this film, while not my favorite that we've talked about, is still a very well-made film beyond the words on the page or the dialogue delivered by the actors.
So I think something that I took away from it is that it isn't necessarily about liking or disliking the characters.
But just to be clear, you liked them.
No,
Sorry, go on.
it's a film about control, right? Like the perception of a megachurch is that there's one person, the pastor, that is in front of 15, 20, 30,000 people in a football stadium, basically, kind of just telling them what to think, right? Like you think of the evangelists, you think of the televangelists, think about what their perception of the Bible is. It's that it is absolute, it is correct, it is the way to think. And then you sort of bundle that into the production value, the theatrics of being in a megachurch and preaching in a megachurch. And the whole premise of this film is based upon the fact they lose control within the first 10 minutes of the film. They lose their narrative, they lose their storyline, they lose the control very quickly. And how they deal with it is not by them actually trying to fix it. It's by going back to what works or what they think works. And then by the end of the film, they basically have fucked up to a point of no return. And then they were going to get saved by the rival church. And yet a decision that they made to move up their announcement by what, like 2 weeks or something, whatever it was. Yeah.
I think 1 week, but still. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, by like a very short period of time, basically screws them over once again. Because the fact of the matter is that they actually were not in control at all. They weren't the ones able to tell their story. And throughout the entire film, through the lens of the mockumentary, where they, you know, you think they might have some creative control, or you see them saying, hey, no, don't record that, or let's just keep going, let's keep going. There's nothing that they have no creative license in this film. They have nothing that they can say, let's move on from this, or let's skip over this part. Everything was a decision outside of their own making. And I thought that was really interesting. That's what I took away from it.
I do. I like your point there. I do. I think that's a really good point. I honestly wish the film had used it more by using a better, like taking better advantage of the split between mockumentary and non-mockumentary thing, in the sense of when they're on, like, I didn't feel there was much difference between like Pastor Childs in front of the camera and Pastor Childs behind the camera. Like, I think it would have been really interesting and potentially really funny as well if, like, as you said, like in front of the camera, Pastor Childs is like constantly trying to assert control and like put himself above other people, while behind the scenes he's entirely different or whatever. But I kind of felt like, again, it just like the character is more, to me, felt like more or less the same person, both on and off screen.
I think what I got from Sterling K. Brown's performance as Lee Curtis Childs is that he wanted to be different in front of the camera as opposed to when the cameras weren't rolling. You know, like Max brought up at the beginning of the episode, you've got the moment when he steps in the gum and he asks, can we cut around that? Like, he wants to present this image of himself through the documentary within the film. So he tries to have that separation that you're talking about. But what I think is one of the strengths of the character is something that you're taking as a detraction, and that's that there is no difference. And that's what I think really works about Lee Curtis as a character, is because he can't separate who he wants to be from who he is, and who that is a failure to reach what he wants. So I think that both in the execution of the character by the, you know, screenwriter and director and storytellers here, and the performance by Sterling K. Brown, we're getting exactly what we wanted. Just maybe you and I are seeing it differently.
I have to agree with Declan more in that, like, I get what you're saying, but I just, I'm not convinced is the big issue by his performance. A guy like who's an evangelist knows how to perform, and I'm not convinced by him performing on camera, like not performing, I should say, like him breaking character. I would have much rather seen a different style where you have those shots and then have like, I don't know, maybe a long shots, like, you know, creeping from somewhere. They really want to get like an investigative spot and show the difference, because I agree with Declan in that there's no difference, and that for someone like a performer, especially an evangelist who makes his money off of selling people essentially a lie, he can perform no matter what. And so I didn't believe it is the other thing.
It's fair. What about you, Max?
I mean, I'm not sure if I agree or if I disagree. I mean, I think we're all kind of like probably circling the same
Yeah.
conclusion, but I think that like I still don't think that it matters what he was like in front of the camera or behind the camera, because I still think that there's still this like third persona, if you will, that it really is. I'm still like hyper focused on this thing, on this idea of control and being able to dictate a narrative. And that there's trying to think, I don't think there's a single instance of the child's being able to actually dictate what they want being told, and it ending up in like in the final product of what we're seeing, right? There's
their way,
obviously
you mean?
attempt. What?
Things don't go their way.
Yeah, things don't go their way. And it's for a variety of reasons, outside of them, right? There's the
Well, I would also disagree with that, in that like the poetic justice of this is that a lot of their undoings is their own fault. It is their actions. I mean, everything that happens is a documentary, so everything that happens is their own fault. And
right,
if
but what I'm
they-
saying is that it's things that they don't want to happen, right? Because they're obviously trying to push
No,
back
no.
and they're trying to prevent these things from happening. And
I get-
that's what I'm coming from.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean that is true.
Like I obviously I think that their actions do have a direct
Right.
impact on what happens to them. But what I'm saying is that I think that their attempts to remedy that and, get themselves out of the conundrums that they get themselves into are not successful. And that for me and my own perception of what a megachurch and what these types of preachers and pastors will do to tell their congregations to go out and sort of do their own thing, right? Like I think that is a really interesting way to go about creating a story. Like I think overall I agree with all of you that like no, this is not, I don't think this is not my favorite film. This is not going to make my top 5. But I think it's a fascinating way of looking at this kind of a storyline. And I don't think it breaks new ground. It doesn't, it just presents it in a really fascinating way. And that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I will say I get where you're coming from. I guess I don't know, maybe it's that I've like learned about enough mega churches, evangelists. I mean, essentially they're cults.
Sure.
A lot of them.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And some
Being
of the
blunt, but I
actual
would agree.
stories in real life play out just the same, except with a little bit more intrigue because it's real life.
Mm.
That I mean, I guess I was just jaded to this idea. I mean, like I said, I've been listening to Genesis for a long time. I love that song, but like it hits all the same notes. Jesus, he knows me. He knows I lie. I've been talking to Jesus all my life. But I mean, that song's like, I don't know, 40 years old now. It's not an uncommon thing, and it's been done. And not to say that this movie does anything like badly. I think
Yeah.
it does have some unique stuff to it. I think it's purely whether or not you have been exposed to this sort of idea before. Some ideas I think you can repeat, like general ideas. I don't know, a mystery like there's serial like mysteries and stuff. You can do those forever, but this specific idea and some things, once you've been exposed to it, you have to do something really different from what you've been exposed to before. And I guess, yeah, I just was not as interested because of it.
Yeah,
So, I was just gonna change gears a little bit. So Declan, if you have one more note on that.
No, you go on.
So speaking from a film perspective, and we're not talking about the story, we're not talking about the technical elements, we're not talking about the character. Well, we are talking about the characters here, foreshadowing. What do you guys think of the lead performances, Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown? Because they became these characters in their own unique way, in the way that they are not, the actors are not pastor and first lady of a megachurch in Atlanta suburbs.
I would I would say the performances were actually really good. Like whether or not, when I say I believe the characters themselves are not believable to me, but like especially Sterling K. Brown, I thought his performance was very believable. He had a lot of emotion to it, especially for like a mockumentary. It's not something you always see, but there was a lot of passion to his performance, and same with Regina Hall. So I think the performances were very good. I mean, they played their characters spectacularly from what they're given. So I can't complain about that at all.
The one thing I would say is I definitely agree with you. I think the performances are really good, but if they're supposed to be comedic performances, I feel like they aren't as strong. Like it's strange. I feel like Sterling K. Brown, he's so good dramatically, but there is that part of me that's like, is he like, he does such a good job that I feel like, again, his character seems straightforward and not comic. And maybe that's okay.
You do bring up a good point, which is that at points I couldn't tell there is a tonal like imbalance in this film, which is some points feel very poignant and that like they're meant to be a drama, but it is in a mockumentary, and then you have like characters who are sort of caricatures of what they're supposed to be. So it is an interesting like opposition there. I still think the performances are good, but
no, I agree.
It is a valid like whether or not the movie would be better if they were played more comedic. Maybe it's just tonal imbalance in the script and that they're trying to cover two separate feelings. But yeah, I think if they delved towards one or the other, it could potentially be better.
Sorry, I thought I had something.
It's a long-winded. I agree with you. I've been doing that a lot this episode.
I know. I think the real bullying we managed to do was that Max and Ben are in general agreement with me.
Hey, George, you recommended this film, right?
Yeah, this was a George pick.
Your fault. All agreeing with that.
I mean, it's
true, but I will remind you of several months ago when I asked the question, do we have to watch Morbius?
Well, okay, but to be fair, we all thought we did.
I mean, it's important that we did, right? We couldn't make all these jokes if we didn't review.
It also was not our fault that the trailer had like 100 minutes worth of footage that was not in the actual movie.
The true example to use is we should bring up the fact that it was Ben's idea to do Staying Alive.
That's true.
No,
that
but
was
that was a
Ben's
good
idea.
idea though.
Yeah.
But it
Like,
was
that was
pretty-
fun.
yeah,
Oh,
it was
and I
pretty-
mean, and I think this was a good idea.
I mean, to
for
be fair, we
episode-
had to watch 2 movies to get to Staying Alive, and that sucked.
Yeah.
But it was a good idea.
The original idea was a 0% Rotten Tomatoes film, so
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
we
was
should have
Ben's
done-
original idea.
agreed on
We
staying
should have
alive.
done a non-sequel.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying we
Yeah.
shouldn't have done Jaws the Revenge?
Ooh.
Okay, well, we've all seen Jaws though, so
I mean,
like
even if you
that's
didn't,
different.
it probably doesn't matter.
No.
So since we're talking about Morbius and Staying Alive and Jaws the Revenge,
This film is
Honk
not in
Honk
that
for
category.
Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. Final thoughts.
I felt like this film had a lot of potential, but it ultimately didn't quite live up to it. I think like there are a lot of good ideas, and it has, you know, many amazing components like Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall, but it just didn't do anything with it. It didn't use its mockumentary format as well as I would like, or even the half thing. And its story did not feel unique in any way. I felt like I saw this story done before. Like when I watched The Eyes of Tammy Faye, I felt like I had seen this story done before. I feel they should have done something more with this, and I felt they ultimately didn't succeed. It's not bad, but I'm a little disappointed. It felt like lost potential for me.
I'll agree with most of Declan in that. Also, they're missing out. I think the current thing to do is like make fun of something like Scientology,
Mm,
Master, right? The Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
mm. Great film.
You would pick up a PTA film.
I mean, it is a great.
You would
satire
abbreviate his
of
name.
Scientology.
I would.
Yeah, I said his full name. Pompous.
Paul.
Paul W.S.
Thomas.
Anderson.
Yeah, Paul W.S. Anderson, the lesser known.
Mr. Anderson. Anyway, Max, final thoughts?
Yeah.
Look at me referencing the Matrix twice in one episode.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I swear one of these days I'll have something original to add in my final thoughts, but
You should go
today's
first.
today is
Yeah,
for
not
final
one of those
thoughts.
days. Today is not one of those days. Well, no, it's because we always like touch on everything that I want to talk about.
Well, yeah, that's why you
Um,
need to go first.
Well, no. But look, I think I found it more interesting than probably most of you. But I also think that I also would rate it probably around the same as all of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Mm.
Like,
I get it.
I don't, it's not like, it's not a film that I'm going to stay up late at night and just like daydream about, but it's definitely something
Well, that would be night dreaming.
no,
If you're staying up late at
Um,
night, you're not daydreaming.
no, I'm daydreaming.
Shut up.
No, you shut up.
A day is 24 hours, George.
Yeah, thank
Time
you.
is a
Thank
construct.
you- thank
Tomorrow's
you,
never
Ben.
coming. We're not getting there.
Well, that's depressing.
Oh snap.
But yeah, so I'm not gonna think about it 24/7. Like it's not one of those thought-provoking films.
Mhm.
I just think that there's some aspects that will stick with me after having seen it that will probably just like pop up every once in a while and be like, oh, yeah, that was cool. And it'll, give me some food for thought for like 5 minutes. The performances were good. I liked Regina Hall. I liked Sterling K. Brown. I thought that they were actually really great. Would I recommend it? Sure. I think you should see it. It's a fun film, but if you don't get to it, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah. Ultimately, I agree with what a lot of you guys said. A lot of what you guys said. There we go. Yeah,
Except for Declan.
it's no, I appreciate what Declan said, and I agree with a lot of it. I think I expected more from this film. Like Declan said, I was a little bit disappointed by the failure to reach some of the potential of the concept and, you know, the title. First of all, "Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul."
Yeah.
There was no honking for Jesus until the 58-minute mark
And
Yeah.
in a 100-minute film.
it's led.
It
So
really
False
wasn't that
promises.
prominent.
think of the potential of a roadside mega church.
That's honestly what I thought we were getting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I suggested
But
it.
a church.
Like they lost their church and now they're trying desperately.
I
Like,
thought
you
it'd
guys
be
see
I
Chef,
thought it'd be
right?
like those 2
Like-
minutes in that Kevin Hart movie where he goes back to high school and dresses up in a chicken outfit with Tiffany Haddish and
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
tries to sell chicken sandwiches. I thought it'd be that, but with Jesus instead of chicken sandwiches.
Is that night school?
Well,
guys have
it
seen
was
Chef,
night school,
right?
but also to be fair, Jesus was involved in that business because they were a Christian. There was basically a parody of Chick-fil-A. But I thought we would.
That's
That's
true.
what I thought we would be getting. I
Mm.
thought that not chicken costumes, but I thought that they would.
Mhm.
I thought we'd be on the side of the highway.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was about 20 minutes of honking for Jesus.
Yeah.
My original question. You guys have seen Chef, right?
See what?
Chef.
Oh yeah.
So like, you know, he leaves his restaurant, goes out on the road. That's what they should have done. Just go out in like a food truck, just preach to people. You know, on the highway, who cares?
I like
Just
that.
anywhere.
Mm.
That would have been great.
Mm.
So 2 honk for Jesus coming soon from Ben Green Productions.
Holy crap! Whoa, Ben.
I
Yeah, I
watched
guess.
Maybe
that.
like a American Psycho 2, like the sequel that nobody even knows exists.
The Matrix Resurrections. There's the third one. All right.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
a little mean to Matrix Resurrections.
That was explicit. So
All right.
next week, I'm tossing the hosting chair back over to Max. He won the second game of Funky Film Reviews. He's going to be leading us in a discussion of his favorite movie of all time, which he has not disclosed to us, even though I'm pretty sure I know what it is. We won't say what it is tonight. You'll just have to tune in next week. In the meantime, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul is currently playing in movie theaters, and it's streaming on Peacock. So enjoy the weekend. Last weekend of summer. Enjoy it. Get outside if you're in a place where it's warm.
Mm.
See you next week.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.